The first lessons that I learned as a franchisee is that I was an innovator, that I couldn't be boxed in a program because I quickly outgrew the system. Like once I learned every single aspect of the business, I started seeing all these opportunities because I had that mindset, that innovative mindset. And I started tinkering with the different departments. There are two types of people in this industry running schools. There's the employee mindset, a director that will never be interested in becoming an entrepreneur. And there are people that have that entrepreneurial mindset that could be educators or not.
Just because you're a mission-driven business doesn't mean you can't also run a good business. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Her Table, Her Rules. I'm Juliet Peters, and I am thrilled today to have Marnie Forestieri with me. And we're going to talk about authentic leadership, which is the whole purpose of our show, really.
I love the title.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So tell me kind of how you started your business and focus on sort of that courage piece. Where did you sort of find the courage to do what you're doing?
I think it's very important to have a journey before you start your business where you actually spend other people's money and learn your way. And I had that opportunity in my 20s. So I built a career in journalism and then transitioned into the marketing side. And then I had that holistic view. But I quickly learned that I wanted to do something that was mission-driven, that would serve the community, and that would allow me to keep on growing at my speed because I'm very fast. I come from the news, so I was really, really fast. And I found that calling in my 30s in early childhood education. Mm-hmm. So that's the first business that I started. I moved to the U.S., and that journey, the same thing. You have to walk in stages before you actually reach a point where you find your voice and what you really want to do. So I started as a franchisee of a brand, and then I kept on learning and growing until I finally founded our own company.
That's awesome. And I know you've had really rapid growth in your current company. Tell me about the preschool that you started. And I think focusing on a little bit the lessons that you learned as a franchisee, because that's a different business model, right? Starting as a franchisee versus your own kind of deal from the ground up.
So I walked in the industry in every position that there is, from bus driver to the cook of the school to franchisee to franchise. I've done it all. So I have a very holistic view of the industry. And the first lessons that I learned as a franchisee is that I was an innovator, that I couldn't be boxed in a program because I quickly outgrew the system. I very soon discovered, oh, they're not doing this right. They're not doing this. And there were a lot of gaps. And that was the opportunity when I bridged to the education side to start bringing differentiators to the industry.
Yeah, and I want to stop there for a second because I think this is a really important point that people don't talk about when we talk about, owning a franchise business. So a lot of business owners, women as well, will go into franchising because it's easy. The business has already been built. It doesn't mean there's not a tremendous amount of work, as you know. It just means that you don't have to do the branding and all of the stuff that you do to build the business from the ground up, right? But you said something really important, and that is franchising. It shouldn't be your first stop if you know you're an innovator in your soul, right? Because that is a difficult model if you are an entrepreneur and an innovator. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit? Because you said that in passing, and I think it's important for people to know that.
Well, I quickly discovered my personality traits, that I was not like an entrepreneur to be boxed in a system that would stay static for 15 years, 20 years. I soon discovered that I was a lifelong learner and that I needed that challenge. Mm-hmm. And I quickly jumped, like once I learned every single aspect of the business, I started seeing all these opportunities because I had that mindset, that innovative mindset. And I started tinkering with the different departments. What if you do this? What if you do that? And I sold that schools that I had, and I bought an independent center. And I learned the struggles of a mom and pop isolated business. that later become a franchisor. So I suddenly understood, oh, these are the challenges of a franchise system. And that's how I started my first brand. It was a franchisor that grew to 15 locations,
Yes.
20. And I learned a lot from the mistakes. I sold that and I started Young Innovators.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think people, a lot of times when they go into a business, they think about sort of all the mistakes that, that have to be made. But the reality is, if you turn those into learning opportunities, right? Sometimes you learn in a franchise system, particularly, you learn what not to do, right? And then you can build a better mousetrap when you come out of the franchise system. So early childhood development, really tough space to be in right now, right? Tough generally, but even tougher right now. So how do you sort of build a business in a time where, it's tough to be in early childhood development, but so very necessary, right? So talk about how you face the challenges, of being a woman-owned business in a really tough field, right?
Excellent question, because I ask that question every day. It's especially difficult because scaling quality was the challenge with the first brand that we built. And my team and I, in the same location that we started the first one, as we scale, we started seeing that we were not attracting mission-driven entrepreneurs like us. At the heart of that business is a mission-driven entrepreneur that understands their responsibility. And in that entrepreneur lies the leadership responsibility, the authenticity, and the service and the commitment to excellence. So you cannot, is a very difficult industry to replicate, because one of the differences between a franchise in childcare and any other franchise is that we rely 100% on staffing and people are unmanageable. So that's why you don't find a franchise system in childcare where you can say, oh, this school is very good. They're all very good. You cannot say that. It depends on the operator. And when you have like the business cap of growing a franchise system and you're not selective with the same type, then you have that diversity of levels of quality that actually they're the ones that don't help build a stable brand, well, consistent brand, in my opinion.
How do you scale in early childhood development? Because clearly there is a need for excellent early childhood development programs, right? But it's not a field that many people go into. It's tough to make money. You can talk about that. I'm sure it's challenging economic environment on a good day, let alone, where we find ourselves right now. So tell me about why you were even called to do this industry to begin with. And you talk about mission focus. Why is that important for you?
So actually, the childcare industry can be very profitable if you run it correctly. So depends on the market segments that you serve. And that's the formula that we found. In what communities, what's the number, what's the capacity, what's the type of environment? The challenge with the industry is replicating quality, because it's not only an education business, it's a customers is a business. So it requires a mindset, a very holistic mindset of understanding both sides of the business, which is hard. And we are, with Young Innovators, we're demystifying that, and we're making it more accessible to bridge the gaps between both sides of the business. And providing a shortcut for new entrepreneurs coming into the industry to understand the importance of every aspect of the organization.
Talk for a minute about hiring and retention of employees in early childhood development, because that's tough, right?
Yeah, that is the number one operational risk is staffing. But not only for childcare, it's for every other industry, but especially on childcare. And what a lot of people don't understand, in any other industry is okay. You can go to a hamburger shop and be serviced by different people. But in childcare, you need consistency. You need a trained and educated pipeline. So we've developed a lot of programs. So when we started Young Innovators, from the previous experience, I said, well, this failed to launch inconsistency. So what did we learn from that? So this time we have to make sure that the systems that we really identify the key person to run that business. And what we found out is that we did it ourselves. So all our schools are corporate schools, all our locations. And from that experience, we say, okay, we found finally the ideal mission-driven entrepreneur that is able to deliver both sides of the business. So we scaled it to the point where we say, okay, now we have a clear picture of who that person is. Is not for everybody, because to your point, it has to be a mission-driven entrepreneur. They have to understand a lot of things that we will teach them along the way. But that persona of the face of the school is a community leader that is really connected to the community. So we finally got that is the person. We even we conducted ourselves a lot of experiments to see what worked and what didn't work. There are two types of people in this industry running schools. There's the employee mindset, a director that will never be interested in becoming an entrepreneur. And there are people that have that entrepreneurial mindset that could be educators or not. And that is the critical difference. Like, I try to turn directors into entrepreneurs. It has been impossible. They don't have it. So now we finally narrow down who is that person and connect at that level of mission first.
Yeah, so that's actually probably the key in a lot of places, is finding, and we deal with that sometimes when people are selling their businesses, that, they want to have a key employee take over the business, right? But that entrepreneurial mindset has to be there. It may be able to be taught, but you're going to have a lot of coaching around that, right? Before you transition somebody from an employee mindset into an entrepreneurial mindset. That's a tough transition. Yeah. But so how do you, what are you thinking about in terms of scaling your business? Because, you now have taken all of it, your schools are company owned, right? Mm-hmm. How will you, because there's such a need for great early childhood development elsewhere, how do you grow that? And is that something you even want to do?
Well, so we've been trying to answer the question for the last 10 years. How do we scale with quality? And when we find the formula, finally, we identify a first franchisee. So one of our locations is becoming a franchise. And that, when I finally met this entrepreneur, it opened my eyes. Wow, these are the people. And if you compare corporate locations, every single model has a lot of disadvantages. Is that connection with their customer and their community? That's what makes the difference in this business. And when we finally found that avatar, that persona, we said, oh, maybe this is the people that we have to find to grow this. We're in that stage right now.
Yeah, that's tough, because the other thing about that people don't realize, and you're a perfect person to talk about this, is the whole idea of franchising, franchisor versus franchisee relationship. When you become a franchisor and you decide, hey, I've got a concept, I'm going to open multiple locations, right? You're taking a step, and you really have to turn into a sales organization,
yes.
Right? And so I would think that would be tricky when you're trying to really build your avatar is built on quality, and yet what's going to grow the business is going to be sales, right?
Okay. Well, that's when, making the right decisions and being very clear on your values comes in. The quality versus quantity is the goal in this brand. I would rather, I don't want to have headaches, especially at my age, right? I want to build something with people that are like-minded, that have the same commitment to quality. And I learned that from the previous brand. I mean, I saw a system grow with many different heads, many different like missions and money driven. And that definitely is not the legacy that I want for my life. I want at the end of my journey, it's not gonna be focused on how many sales. No, we already made it, kind of, right? We all learned the lessons. It's gonna be how many people like me I can help build a quality of life and the income for their families.
Talk about that for a second with women business owners particularly. Women are entering, they're building businesses at twice the rate of men starting businesses, right? Tell me what unique challenges you think you faced as a woman entrepreneur.
Well, so I started in the industry in 2006. So it was very different. At the beginning, it was challenging because not only you are a woman, I didn't have experience in the industry. So that's why my entry had to be a franchise in order to be in that bracket and license capacity to make money. As you say, there are many childcare centers that don't make money, but there are some that do make it. So once you find the formula, you could have a very prosperous business. So that was my entrance to, and at that time, I faced the challenge of funding. But once I established my reputation, I'm at the same level as any man because I have more experience than they do. I've done everything in the industry. I have experience in every type of business model. So now it's the opposite. Now banks want to do business with us, and I can help an entrepreneur connect them so that they have that access to funding.
Yeah, that is a really important point, which is the access to capital piece. In the past, have you had to access capital and been rejected for capital? Tell me kind of how you grew into now something that banks want to fund as opposed to somewhere where banks were like, no, thank you.
Well, the first thing was that I needed experience in the industry and I needed to prove myself. So once you have that track record, I remember buying my independent center in 2015 and visiting the site with the bank, which is the first site that we ever built. And he thought I was crazy. He was like, are you sure you want to get it done? I mean, it looked like really bad. And he was like, how are you going to turn this center around? It was a property going in foreclosure. Mm-hmm. And you need that vision, that credibility. So in that case, he was like, okay, well, you did it once. You have done it several times. So, okay, let's do it. So once you establish yourself and your credibility and you have the experience and the track record, then you have a name for yourself in an industry. It's very different. A lot of people try to open a business here and then open in another like similar business that is more tricky. But if you stay on the same track, I think you have the past that gives the banks the reputation that they need and the confidence to invest in you.
Did you use SBA lending initially, or how did you do it?
We've opened multiple sites. Yeah. We're using every single type of funding there is. Okay, so we've done it very intentionally with young innovators because we wanted to walk the walk of the people that we want to help, and they're not a lot of people. We want to help people like us build successful, thriving businesses. So we've done SBA loans, we do traditional loans, we've done lines of credit. I mean, anything you can imagine, we've done it. Mm-hmm. So we can speak from experience of what works, doesn't work. We build businesses with smaller center, bigger center, all size, but always targeting the same type of parents.
Interesting. So tell me about so you built your owner avatar. How did you build your parent avatar of who you wanted to attract into the center as potential clients and customers?
Well, they say that you want to help the people the person that I once were. So when I see the young moms that we're now serving, I see myself in them. That concerned mother that wants the best quality for their child, that looks for quality and above everything else wants to build a relationship with the caregivers. So that is the mom. It is the mom that I was when I was raising my kids. And I'm answering those questions through the podcast. Like, oh my God, if I would have had all those answers back then, it's too late. My kids are grown. But that's it. It's the person that I once were.
And how important, I mean, sure, you can speak to this very eloquently. There's been so much over the last few years about not having appropriate early childhood intervention type of classes and daycare and all of these things that people need. How important is that to a community?
Well, it's the statistic is sad because only according to accreditation agency, only 10% of centers provide that quality. And there are many factors that contribute to that. But the first one is the turnover. And sometimes it's uncontrollable. It's a career that needs a rebranding. And we're trying to do that. And when you go and try to hire the new generation, I've been on the ground and I'm like, okay, this is hard. I mean, you figure it out when you're interviewing the challenges of why the new generation doesn't want to and the anxieties that they face or why they don't consider the industry. But we're trying to appeal to that mission-driven teacher again because it's a life-changing career. 90% of the brain of a child develops by the time they're 5. Yeah. It is a career that sets up the foundation for the rest of their lives. So what you say to a child, how you act, how you respond is critical. That's why quality has to be the foundation. Not building a business only, but it's that commitment to having that caregiver, giving them the center stage, the pride in their job, and the recognition for what they do every day. Because it's not caregiving; it's brain architecture, pretty much.
No, 100%. And I first of all, I applaud you for really making a business in this space because it's. It's I know it's tough, but it's so critically important, right? And I do think women tend to gravitate, well, obviously in childcare, the workforce is primarily female, right? Yeah. But I do think also women, you can speak to our audience who is mission-driven businesses because just because you're a mission-driven business doesn't mean you can't also run a good business. Absolutely. Explain that though, because I think sometimes people really believe mission and profitability are two different. Yeah.
And you can combine both. Like I'm proof of that. Because and my entire team is proof of that. Every day these women wake up and I'm like, wow. I mean, besides all the challenges that they might face, they have a positive mindset and they are focused on the mission and what we're doing. We always say we're going to be the last women standing, but we're going to do it right. And we're not going to scale with like programs that are disorganized. We're not going to do that. So that commitment begins with the person at the front of the business. And I also make them accountable for the profitability as well, because we're not going to have jobs if they don't make it profitable. Everything has to be part of the ecosystem. So we've tailored programs to try to identify those leaders, but also how can they attract those mission-driven teachers to work in the industry and become the last warriors of the industry if we have to.
Absolutely. Well, Marnie, I just so appreciate you joining me today. I think it's really important for everyone in the audience to know you can have a profitable and a mission-driven business, and that it is ideally something that women are really great at. So thank you very much for being with us today. Thanks, and we'll see you the next time on Her Table, Her Rules.